On Monday night, President Bola Tinubu addressed Nigerians in his first State of the Nation broadcast. He acknowledged the negative impact of his administration's economic reforms on the people, also acknowledging the delay between announcing the reforms and implementing sufficient support measures. The president then outlined interim measures to alleviate the current economic burden on Nigerians, focusing on assistance for businesses, the working class, and the most vulnerable in society. But there were also some key issues that analysts believe were omitted in the president's speech. Now, since the removal of subsidy on petrol, Nigerians have seen a rise in the cost of living, which has also been affected by the partial floating of the naira. Joining me now is Akin Fatunke, chartered accountant, as we get into the highlights and possibly the lowlights of President Tinubu's speech last night. Akin, welcome to Business Edge. Thank you so much for joining me. Hello, Akin. Can you hear me? Hello, Akin. Okay, Akin, can you please unmute your mic? I believe you're speaking, but I can't hear you now. Akin, can you unmute your mic, please? Fantastic. Akin, welcome to Business Edge. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
So I want us very quickly to just touch on this issue, because I know a number of people have spoken about the fact that the removal of the fuel subsidy, it's been a long time coming, and there have been several attempts to remove it before now, but somehow it keeps finding its way back into the budget and back into Nigeria's daily life. And a lot of times that's based on the hardships that Nigerians experience when the subsidy is removed. So Nigerians are currently experiencing hardships right now. So I quickly need to ask you, with this Tinubu administration, let's start from there. Do you think we've truly seen the end of the fuel subsidy?
Well, I would rather say that I have seen a very bold, the boldest move I've seen since the time of late Rilwanu Lukman, going to about 30 years of the political will to do the right thing as far as Nigeria is concerned. And Tolulope, you must agree, depending on how you look at it, what I think is white might be black to you and vice versa. But the truth of the matter is that, like the law of osmosis, whatever is going from a lower concentration to a higher concentration must come in the reverse. Higher concentration to lower concentration, that is science. I am of the firm belief that because for the very first time, we have had a cancer patient that has been dying by inches, deliberately, about to be pronounced dead, and then we got a bit of a miracle worker of sorts who now came and said, let me just give some injection and see whether I can revive. It's going to be very painful. It's going to be very, very excruciating. However, depending on how we manage the maze, I think, to answer your question directly, we have come to the end of the subsidy on gasoline, because when we talk about petrol generally, the other aspects of petrol has really been, the subsidy thereon has been taken off. But on petrol, yes. Therefore, it means more pay, it means more planning, it means more character, it means more competence, and it means much more seriousness. Above all, it means more trust. More trust. The word TRUST is very, very clear.
Yep. Okay, Akin, we'll get to that trust pact, because a lot of questions about the cost of governance and also some of the shadowy figures that the president mentioned yesterday. But let's quickly look at some specific interventions now that the president mentioned in his speech. There's an allocation of some 75 billion naira to 75 enterprises that have the potential for sustainable economic growth. Now, there are a lot of questions as to which enterprises these will be, what people will need to do, or how these enterprises will qualify for what the president's intervention is. So let's start from there. When you look at the 75 billion for 75 enterprises that can spur economic growth, employ people, what do you think we're looking for here?
We are looking for the big numbers. We are looking for good manufacturing. We are looking for fairness and equity. We need economic managers who will look at this 75, you call them manufacturing, a bit of a conglomerate that has linkage effects to be able to ramp up employment, local content, drive competition, And at the end of the day, should be able to make it. I mean, I could give one or two. There are a few. There are a few in the oil and gas. There are a few in service. There are a lot in educational related companies that we have here and there. There are some in the health sector. The idea is that there are 17 SDGs, you know, um, medium to short-term development goals, which today in Nigeria is showing red. So we can just pick one from those 17, pick the other layer of 17, and the only set of people that can do this will be well-honed accounting finance managers. The idea being that we are moving away from the neoclassical economic intervention into the pure Keynesian intervention that's not going to leave everything to the market forces. And it's beginning to show. I mean, if you are making losses as we speak for the very first time in the manufacturing sector, Nestle is an example, and we can get back into the likes of Nestle, the likes of Cadbury, the likes of Liberal Brothers, whereby not only is it that they will be exemplars, but they will be able to now do linkage effect to lower wrong level under government intervention, under good regulation. Now, this kind of intervention, strict, direct, and the scorecard must show. And if you are not up to it in terms of the kind of management and in terms of governance that we expect, quickly, the oxygen mask is given to you is going to be untaken. US has done it in the auto industry, and it comes, I must say, without any sentiment. Yes, it can happen. And what I see is that this is in the right direction. Yeah.
So you mentioned enterprises, almost bigger businesses. It's also good to know that the president didn't leave out MSMEs, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as nano businesses. And the interesting part of that conversation is the amount of money the president is also looking to give out, about 125 billion naira of investment for this sector. But people are worried because they're worried that sharing this money, does it make any sense when we've yet to address the challenges and bottlenecks that MSMEs and very nano enterprises or nano businesses in Nigeria face? How do you give them 125 billion, or how do you put out money when there are still issues? Electricity is an issue, financing is an issue, being able to get inputs for their businesses are issues that this 125 billion doesn't exactly address. Or what do you think?
My thinking is that it's good in the right direction. We are talking of Nigerians that can now use the word palliatives, occasioned by the removal of fuel and the alignment of exchange rate, which has ramped up prices with inflation going to about 23%. So these are just like immediate. Now, you are talking about governance. You're also talking about the fact that infrastructure is still not in place. The infrastructure development loans to the states are all there. They must work integratedly. And let me say something. I think it was Otto von Bismarck that said, too little, too late. Oh yeah, too little, but okay for now. In the case of Nigeria, it must start from somewhere. And I belong to that tendency to say, I have a problem, I burst into it. Yes, I do not expect I'm going to succeed 100%, but by the time I'm going for 50, 60%, it's a good thing in the right direction. Therefore, regulation, transparency, accountability, like it's done in the private sector, must now get back into public sector.
Okay.
Definitely, I think this is right in the right direction, and one of the things that is going to ramp up.
All right, let's talk about labor unions now. All right, let's talk about labor unions now, because as I said in the headlines, the NLC is saying that they're still going to go ahead with their strike. Their steering committee is meeting about 12 noon today. We might have an update on that in the next few hours. But the president also mentioned working with labor unions to introduce a new national minimum wage for workers. He said, yes, a wage increase is coming. But we have a situation where states are barely managing to affect the current minimum wage as it is. And there are concerns as to how this potential increase in minimum wage can also lead to inflation. So how can we arrive at a wage agreeable and also importantly payable by all in the context of the conversation we have had? Even the 30,000 that was a struggle for many years to get passed and now still a struggle to implement has been seen as not a wage that is successful or enough to take workers home. So where do we even go from that with the president promising that a wage increase is coming?
Tolulope, let's go back to first principles. And the first principle is the fact that Nigeria must be restructured. Nigeria is not made up of federal government. Nigeria is made up of federal and subnationals at the state level and the local government level. We are running a constitution, in my honest opinion, that is not working. Oh, yes, the president has been bold enough to say, yeah, this is what I'm going to do for public service and civil service, which constitute a minuscule, I just say, a minuscule in the total population of over 200 million people. So, and you are right to the letter. What are the states doing? Yes, I think the federal government can start. Mr. President has no powers to dictate to the states. And so the states must now begin to find ways and means to be efficient, to be effective, and to look back to producing using their factors of production. That is where the economic restructuring now comes in. A good start, this is just the start, like I said. The state governments must all key into it. Having said that, I am not going to sit down on television or radio and give people false hope. We are far gone. It's gone bad. It's really gone bad. And I think the Nigerian Labour Congress realizes, I believe, realizes that there is no way they can be dictated to federal as to what is going to happen in the states. There are NLC factors in each of the states. So go negotiate at that level. But let Mr. President start, and let him start well. Another bold move, the wage increase that we should have to be coming at term period, and Bola Tinubu, who has come from the experience that I know he has from Lagos State, is going to now put structures in place to make sure that at intervals, 3 years, 4 years, this moves with productivity. So the bottom line of what I'm saying here is put bold plans. The state government must come into it. The local government must come into it. Must think of doing a total revamp and restructuring. We start. But what I see that the president has gone beyond the Labour Congress. It's looked at more of the Nigerians, and all the interventions that you mentioned are for more, not only for the Labour Congress, but the vast majority of people who are not necessarily workers.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Because of time, I want to get to another thing, because there's also what was not mentioned, and that's something that a lot of people have been focusing on in the hours after the president's speech. What was not mentioned was the refineries. We heard shortly after the president was inaugurated that there was a plan in place that was at least to get at least one refinery working at optimal level before the end of the year. And a large part of the current crisis that Nigeria is experiencing is tied to the issue of our refineries. Yet the president did not mention nor provide updates on that plan. So, Akin, I'll ask you this on that. What do you make of that in particular? And then there's also a conversation about the cost of governance in Nigeria as well, cutting the cost of governance. Now, President Tinubu has asked Nigerians to bear this current hardship and make sacrifices. But if you speak to many Nigerians, they're also looking at government to also make some sacrifices as well. You know, you mentioned the issue of transparency and trust earlier on. So when we look at the refineries, the fact that they were omitted from this speech, there wasn't a plan put into place as well, or announced rather, and then now we get into an issue of cost of governance and cutting the cost of governance as well. Nothing from the president on that end. So in terms of those omissions, what do you make of them? What do you think Nigerians themselves should also make of them?
Tolulope, I owe myself and I owe Nigerians the truth, nothing but the truth. It may not be a truth that a lot of people want to bear. Our refineries have been thoroughly run down. I have an oil and gas background. And I happen to know that President Bola Tinubu also had oil and gas background. Go to the refinery that we have now, they are sitting on a bed of oil. Remediation needs to be taken and all that kind. Okay, so what we are trying to do now is that we have one and the K-leg, one and a half legged person to now work under the ambit of high cost of production. Our refineries are not efficient, have been stolen blind, and it's not working. And I will tell you one of the reasons. There was a time that licenses were given to refineries to government refineries, none came up. Reason being that we don't have the appropriate pricing down the line. This subsidy that has been removed is a good, it's a good factor to now ramp up and get people to come in. Dangote is private. Dangote is doing what he is doing. Yes, I agree. It's going to help to reduce quite a number of things, and then the NNPC is also part and parcel of that. That is not what we are getting. So what we have in the refineries for a long time, one is going to come up, second is going to come up. I don't have trust, I don't have faith, I haven't worked in oil and gas that this is going to happen. I do not have the faith. I need to be proved right at the end of the day. What will now happen is that after all the turnaround maintenance and all those things are going to be just pumping money and paying salaries to people that are not producing anything. And don't forget, we took the wrong choices. We are still drilling and believing that we can put refineries like we put in Kaduna, not an economic decision that needs to have been taken. But we decided we are going to do that because we wanted to just spread and be able to sell petrol at the same price. This topic that you have just put on can take 2 or 3 hours. I do not have my confidence on that. I think it can come. It will come, but the quantum of what we are going to get is not going to be commensurate to what we are expecting. But now that we have liberalization, commercialization, and total deregulation of that downstream and midstream industry, then experts can now begin to come in and say, look, wait a minute, I think this country is now getting serious. Let's go out there and see how we can revamp refineries. Finally, I'm going to tell you, in the dying days of General Obasanjo, you remember he sold refineries, the same Dangote, the same $10, and a couple of people came. Unfortunately, the same Labour Congress, you and I, Tolulope, and myself, said, no, we can't sell our assets that way. And the whole thing was reversed. I have an ExxonMobil background. The CEO of ExxonMobil Worldwide came to Nigeria and said, look, can we help? Yes, but unfortunately, the Nigerian factor came into it. So that Nigerian factor are the things that I think Bola Tinubu is boldly, decidedly, focusedly looking at now. We are not going to get the results like yesterday. No, we are going to get it today. We are going to get it tomorrow. But at the end of the day, one thing that the speech of yesterday did not say, and I'm going to be bold to tell you that, is the fact that cutting of belt needs to start from the top, from Bola Tinubu himself.
From the top.
From the executive. Yes. We are not saying that these are low-hanging fruits that Nigeria wants to hear, and I guess the Nigerian Labour Congress also wants to hear. I guess my mother in the village and your grandfather in the village, Tolulope, wants to hear. You cannot be saying, do as I say and not as I do. It's very, very important that we need to do that around with other reforms that we have.
All right, Akin. Unfortunately, I apologize. I have to interject there because we need to take a quick time out, and we'll have to wrap the conversation here. But there's a lot that the president said, and we look forward to having more conversations on the interventions and how they roll out in the future. Akin Fatunke, Chartered Accountant, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much.